We're on page 802. Sancho's governing his isle. As far as we can tell, he's doing a great job. The Duke and the Duchess continue to create these situations for Don Quixote, and the last one was that the waiting woman came and asked for help, right? For her daughter who was 14 and got taken away or got tricked. Did that end? Did we finish that too?
Yes, we did.
We did. We finished that.
Wait.
Altisidora?
Yeah.
No.
I thought she fell in love with him.
Yeah, she fell in love with Dr. Bishop.
He's old.
Oh,
She's 14.
You know, that's so dumb.
I'm rewinding back to 797 just to remember what. Oh. So they sent a note to Teresa Panza, and now she's all excited to wear her new dress and go see and for their daughter to be married off to some dignitary. Okay. And then we're on chapter 51, the progress of Sancho Panza's government and other matters such as they are. We were reading the letter from Don Quixote to Sancho Panza and giving him more advice. He got the letter from, did Sancho write him a letter first? Maybe not. Okay. The Duchess is sent out with a suit to expect an answer. Okay, so farewell and God keep you free from all harm, your friend Don Quixote de la Mancha. Sancho listened most attentively to the letter. I'm at the top of 802, which was praised for its wisdom by all who heard it. He then rose from table and calling the secretary, shut himself up in a room with him, intending to reply to his master Don Quixote at once and without more delay. So he instructed the secretary to write from his dictation without adding or omitting a word, which he did, and the answering letter was to this effect. Sancho Panza's letter to Don Quixote. The pressure of my business is so great that I have not time to scratch my head or even to cut my nails, and so I wear them very long, heaven help me. This I say, beloved master, so that your worship may not be surprised that I have not given your account till now of my good or ill fortune in this government, in which I suffer from worse hunger than when we two were roaming the woods and wilds. Poor Sancho. The Duke, my master, wrote to me the other day, informing me that certain spies had come into this isle to kill me. But so far, the only one of them I have discovered is a certain doctor in this town who gets a salary for killing all the governors who come here. His name is Dr. Pedro Riccio, and he is a native of Tirteafuera. And your worship can see from that name whether I have not reason to fear death at his hands. This same doctor boasts that he does not cure existing maladies, but prevents them from arising. And the remedies he uses are diet, and still more diet, till he has reduced his patient to skin and bone, as if leanness were not a worse evil than fever. In short, he is killing me of hunger, and I am dying of annoyance. And instead of coming here as I expected to get warm food and cool drink, and to lay my body between holland sheets and on feather pillows, I have come to do penance like a hermit. And as I am not doing it willingly, I think that the devil will get me in the end. Okay, remember that Sancho was supposed to be doing his 3,000 lashes, and he agreed to do penance, and he thinks that being in charge of his own isle is going to equal great meals and soft feather beds, and that being in charge is just great. And what has he discovered? It's pretty much the opposite. So being in governance of your own isle requires sleepless nights and a strict diet, and there's no feather pillows in sight. Isn't this the way it goes? You want to be in charge, and then when you're in charge, you're like, oh, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Up to now, I have not touched a fee or taken a bribe, and I cannot imagine where this will end. For they have told me here that the most of the governors who come to this isle take a great deal of money either in gifts or in loans from the people of the town before entering, and that this is the ordinary custom among newly created governors, and not only here. Going the rounds the other night, I came across a most lovely young lady in men's clothes, and a brother of hers dressed as a woman. My butler fell in love with the girl and thoughts of making her his wife, so he says, and I have chosen the boy for my son-in-law. Today, the two of us are going to make our intentions known to the father of the pair, a certain Don Diego de la Llana, who is as perfect a gentleman and an old Christian as you could desire. I visit the markets as your worship advised me, and yesterday I found a market woman pretending to sell fresh hazelnuts and discovered that she had mixed 1 bushel of fresh nuts with one of old, worthless, rotten ones. I impounded them all for the charity boys, who will know how to pick the good from the bad, and forbade her to enter the market for a fortnight. The people said that was a good sentence, for it is a common opinion in this town, your worship, that there is not a worse sort of people than your market woman, for they are a shameless, godless, brazen lot, as I can well believe from my experience of other places. I am very glad that my lady, the Duchess, has written to my wife, Teresa Panza, and sent her the present of your worship speaks of, and I will try to show myself grateful in due course. Kiss her hands on my behalf, your worship, and tell her that I say that she has not thrown into a torn sack, as the end will show. I should not like you to have any unpleasant disputes with my lord and lady, sir, for if you quarrel with them, I shall certainly suffer for it. And it would not be right, seeing that you gave me the advice to be grateful, not to be grateful yourself for all the favors they have done you and the hospitality that they have given you in their castle. The cat-calling business I do not understand, but I imagine it must be one of those tricks the wicked enchanters are always playing on your worship. I shall learn about it when we meet. Sancho was trying to govern, and he was in his chamber, and suddenly there was bells. His window was open because it was a warm night, and there were bells and meows, and suddenly through the window came a string of bells and cats, and the cats ran around his room, and he was trying to get them out, and one of the cats attached to his face let go and ate his nose and scratched him up, and it took him a week to. This was Don Quixote, not Sancho. Sorry. We don't know why. I should like to send your worship something, but I do not know what to send, unless it is some enema to be used with bladders. They are very curious things and made in this isle. But if my office lasts, I will find something to send you by hook or by crook. If my wife Teresa Panza writes to me, please pay the carriage and send me the letter, for I am longing to hear how things are with my house, my wife, and my children. And so may God deliver your worship from evilly disposed enchanters and bring me safe and sound out of this government, which I doubt, for from the way Dr. Pedro Riccio is treating me, I do not expect to lead with more than my life. Your worship's servant, Sancho Panza, the governor. The secretary sealed the letter and dispatched the courier at once, and Sancho's tormentors assembled and planned together the means of making an end of his government. That evening, Sancho spent drawing up some ordinances touching the good government of what he's supposed to be his isle. He decreed that there must be no cornering of provisions in the state, and that wine can be imported from anywhere at all, on condition that its place of origin was declared, so that it could be priced according to its value, goodness, and reputation. And anyone watering it or changing its name should pay for it with his life. He lowered the price of all footwear, especially of shoes, the current price seeming to him exorbitant. He fixed the rate of servants' wages, which were mounting unchecked at a headlong pace. He imposed the heaviest penalties on singers of lewd and disorderly songs, either by day or by night. He decreed that no blind man should sing miracles in rhyme unless he could bring unquestionable evidence that they were true, as most of their tales were, in his opinion, fictitious and brought discredit upon the genuine ones. He created and selected an inspector of the poor, not to persecute them, but to examine whether they were genuine. For under the disguise of poverty and counterfeit sores go sturdy thieves and hale drunkards. So good, in fact, were the laws he ordained, that they are kept in that place to this day under the name of the Constitutions of the great governor, Sancho Panza. No joke. Marion, chapter 52, in which is recorded the adventure of the second dolorous and distressed waiting woman, otherwise called Dona Rodriguez.
Side relates that once Don Quixote was healed of his scratches, the life he led in the castle seemed to him clean contrary to the rule of knighthood which he professed. and so he determined to beg the Duke and the Duchess's leave to depart for Saragossa, as the festival was drawing near, which he hoped to win the armor usually jousted for. But as he was at table one day with his host, and on the point of carrying out his intention and asking their permission, suddenly there entered through the door of a great hall 2 women, as they afterwards proved, swathed in mourning from head to foot. One of them ran up to Don Quixote and threw herself flat on the ground with her lips pressed to his feet, uttering all the while the deepest, saddest, and most melancholy groans. All the spectators were in a consternation, and even the Duke and Duchess, though they suspected that this was some new trick which their servants had prepared for Don Quixote, were puzzled at the earnestness of the lady's demonstration of grief, until the compassionate Don Quixote prevailed upon her to rise from the ground and remove her cloak from her tearful visage. The face revealed, however, was the cause of an even greater astonishment, for they beheld the waiting woman, Dona Rodriguez, and the other mourning figure proved to be her daughter, who had been deceived by the rich farmer's son. All who knew her were astonished, and the Duke and Duchess most of all, for though they considered her rather a silly creature, they did not think her so far gone as to perform these crazy tricks. After a while, Dona Rodriguez turned to her master and mistress and said, "May it please your excellencies to give me leave to retire a little while with this night, for that I must do if I am to escape from a situation into which I have come through the impudence of a ill-conditioned villain." The Duke gave her leave to retire with Don Quixote for as long as she pleased, and she then turned her face to that knight and said, "Some days ago, valiant knight, I related to you the treacherous wrong a wicked farmer has done to my dear beloved daughter, who is the unfortunate lady here before you, and you promised me to take up her cause and right the injury she has suffered. But now it has come to my knowledge that you desire to leave this castle in search of good adventures. May God send you them. Therefore, I wish you to challenge this stubborn rustic before you slip off into the highways, and force him to marry my daughter in fulfillment of his promise of marriage made previously to his lying with her. For to expect justice from the Duke my master is to ask for peers off an tree, for the reason I have declared to your worship in private. So may our Lord give you good health and not leave us unprotected." To this plea Don Quixote replied with great gravity and circumstance, "Good lady, moderate your tears, or rather dry them, and be sparing of your sighs, for I take upon me the charge of seeing your daughter's wrong redressed, though it would not have been better for her not to have been so easy in believing lovers' promises, for most of them are quick to promise, but very slow to perform. So by leave of my lord the Duke, I will set out immediately to search for this profligate young man, and find him, challenge him, and kill him, should he refuse to fulfill his pledged word. For the principal purpose of my order is to spare the humble and punish the proud. I mean to succor the wretched and to destroy the cruel." "There is no need," replied the Duke, "for your worship to put yourself to the trouble of searching for the rustic of whom this good lady complains, nor have you any need either to ask my permission to challenge him. I grant him duly challenged and take it upon myself to inform him of this defiance and make him accept it, and come to answer for himself at this castle of mine, where I will give you both a fair field, observing all the conditions proper to such affairs, and securing impartial justice to you. For all princes are obliged to grant a free field to those who do battle within the bounds of their dominions." "Then, with that assurance and your highness's good leave," replied Don Quixote, "I hereby declare that for this occasion I waive my identity, lower myself to the meanness of this offender, and reduce myself to his level, thus granting him the right of combat with me. And so I defy and challenge him, though absent, by reason of the wrong he did in defrauding this poor girl, who was a maid and now by his fault is one no longer. And he shall fulfill the promise he gave her to be her lawful husband, or he shall die in the ordeal." Then stripping off a glove, he threw it into the middle of the hall, and the Duke picked it up, repeating that he accepted the challenge in his vassal's name, and fixing the date at 6 days hence, and the place in the castle courtyard, and the arms those customary among knights, lance and shield and complete armor with all the other pieces, without deceit, trickery, or any supernatural charm, inspected and examined by the judges of the lists. "But first of all," said the Duke, "this good lady and this bad maiden must place the right of their cause in the hands of Don Quixote, for in no other manner can anything be done or in this same challenge be brought to due execution." "Yes, I do place it there," answered the waiting woman. And I too," added the daughter, all tearful, ashamed, and confused. These provisions being settled, and the Duke having made the necessary arrangements, the ladies in mourning departed, and the Duchess commanded that henceforth they should not be treated as her servants, but as ladies errant, who had come to her house to sue for justice. So they were given private quarters and waited on like strangers, much to the astonishment of the other servants, who could not imagine where the folly and presumption of Doña Rodriguez and her unfortunate daughter would stop. At this point, to crown the feast and bring the meal to a fine conclusion, there suddenly entered the hall the page who had taken the letters and presents to Teresa Panza, the wife of Governor Sancho Panza, which arrival delighted the Duke and Duchess, who were longing for the news of his journey. The page replied to their questions by saying that he could not answer publicly or briefly, but he begged their excellencies to wait until they were alone. In the meantime, they might amuse themselves with certain letters, 2 of which he brought out and put into the Duchess's hands. One was headed, "Letter from my Lady the Duchess of I do not know where," and the other, "To my husband Sancho Panza, Governor of the Isle of Barataria, whom may God prosper more years than these." The Duchess's cake would not bake, as the saying is, until she has read her letter. She opened it, glanced through it, and finding that she could read it aloud to the Duke and the bystanders, did so to this effect. Teresa Panza's letter to the Duchess. "I was delighted, your highness, with the letter you wrote for me, for truly, my dear lady, I had greatly longed for it. The string of corals is very fine, and my husband's hunting suit is every bit as good. All this village is glad that your ladyship has made my consort Sancho a governor, though everyone disbelieves it, particularly the priest, Master Nicholas the barber, and Samson Carrasco the bachelor. But that does not worry me, so long as it is true, which it is. They can say what they like. Though, to tell you the truth, I should not have believed it myself, but for the coming of the quarrels in the suit, for they all take my husband for a dolt in this village, and cannot imagine he can be fit to govern anything except a herd of goats. Heaven be his guide, and put him in the way he should go to suit his children's needs. My dearest lady, I am determined by your leave to make hay whilst the sun shines, and go to court and lean back in my coach, to spite the thousands that envy me already. So please your excellency, bid my husband send me a bit of money, and let it be quite a bit, for expenses are enormous in this capital. It is amazing what bread costs of real there, and meat 30 maravedis a pound. But if he wishes me not to come, let him advise me in time, for my feet are itching to get on the road. My friends and neighbors tell me that if my daughter and I cut a grand and stately figure at court, my husband will get more honor by me than I by him, since many people are sure to ask, 'Who are the ladies in that coach?' And one of my servants will answer, 'The wife and daughter of Sancho Panza, governor of the Isle of Barataria.' And in this way, Sancho will get known, and I shall be highly thought of, and you can get anything in Rome. I am as sorry as can be that they have not harvested acorns in our village this year. However, I am sending your highness about half a peck, which I went to the woods myself to gather and pick over one by one. But I could find none bigger, though I wish they were the size of ostrich eggs. Do not forget to write to me your pomposity, and I will be sure to answer and inform you of my health and of all there may be to tell you about this place where I remain, praying our Lord to preserve your highness and not forget me. My daughter Sancha and my son kiss your grace's hands. Your servant whose desire is to see your ladyship rather than to write, Teresa Panza." Everyone was highly delighted at Teresa Panza's letter, most of all the Duke and the Duchess, who asked Don Quixote's opinion whether it should be right to open the letter addressed to the governor, which he imagined must be excellent. Don Quixote said that to please them he would open it, which he did, and it ran in this fashion. Teresa Panza's letter to Sancho Panza, her husband. "I received your letter, my beloved Sancho, and I swear to you, as a Catholic Christian, I was within an inch of going off my head with delight. Yes, indeed, when I learnt that you were a governor, I thought I should fall dead on the spot from pleasure. For they say that sudden gladness kills like a great grief, you know. And your daughter, Sanchica, wedded herself without noticing it, out of pure joy. I had the suit you sent me before me, and the corals my lady the Duchess sent me round my neck, and the letters in my hands, and the bearer of them standing there. But for all that it really seemed all to be a dream. For who could have thought that a goat herd would come to be a governor of isles? You remember, my dear, how my mother used to say that to see much you must live long. I think she was right, for expect to see more if I live longer, and I do not mean to stop till I see you a rent farmer or a tax gatherer. For in those trades you certainly do have and handle money, though the devil carries off those that abuse them. My lady the Duchess will tell you how I long to go to court. Consider the matter and let me know your pleasure, for I will try and do you honor there by going about in a coach. Neither the priest, the barber, the bachelor, nor even the sexton can believe that you are a governor. They say that it is all a humbug or a matter of enchantment, like all your master Don Quixote's affairs. And Samson says that he is going to look for you and knock the governorship out of your head and the madness out of Don Quixote's skull. But I do not but I do nothing but laugh and look at my necklace and plan how to make up that suit of yours for our daughter. I've sent some acorns to my lady, the Duchess. I wish they had been gold. Send me strings of pearls if they are in fashion in your isle. The news in this village is that Rukia has married her daughter to a wretched sort of a painter, who came here to do any sort of painting jobs. The council commissioned him to put his majesty's arms over the doors of the council house. He asked for 2 ducats, which they gave him in advance. He worked for 8 days, and at the end of that time he had done nothing, and said that he could not manage to paint such trumpery. He returned the money, but all the same he posed as a good workman and got married. The truth is, he has given up the pencil and taken to the spade, and now he goes to the fields like a gentleman. Pedro de Lobo's son had taken orders and shaved his head, meaning to be a priest. When Mingo Silvato's granddaughter heard of it, she sued him for a breach of promise. Malicious tongues are pleased to say that she is with child by him, but he denies it stoutly. This year there are no olives and there is no drop of vinegar to be found in the whole village. A company of soldiers passed through here and took 3 local girls away with them. I will not tell you their names, for they may come back, and they will be sure to find men to marry them, with all their blemishes, good and bad. Tanchika is making bone lace. She earns 8 clear maravedis a day, which she is putting by in a money box to help towards her wedding portion. But now that she is a governor's daughter, you will give her a dowry without her working for it. The fountain in the marketplace has dried up. A thunderbolt fell on the pillory. May they all fall there. I await an answer to this and a decision about my going to court, and with this may God preserve you more years than me, or as many, for I should not like to leave you in this world without me. Your wife, Teresa Ponza. These letters called forth applause, laughter, approval, and wonder, and to crown everything, the courier arrived bearing Sancho's letter to Don Quixote, which was also read in public and aroused some doubts as to the governor's foolishness. The Duchess retired to hear from the page what had happened to him in Sancho's village, and he told her in great detail without omitting any relevant circumstance. He gave her the acorns and also cheese which Teresa had given him, a very good one, and better than those of Taunton. And the Duchess accepted it with the greatest pleasure, and there we will leave her, to tell the end of the government of the great Sancho Panza, flower and mirror of all governors of isles.
Can you keep going just for another 2 minutes?
Of the troubled conclusion of Sancho Panza's government. It is idle to think that things in this life will last forever in one state. On the contrary, everything seems to go in cycles, or rather roundabout. Summer follows on spring, autumn on summer, and winter on autumn, and spring on winter, and so time revolves in this continuous wheel. Only human life speeds to its end faster than the wind, without hope of a renewal, except in that other life which has no bounds to limit it. So says Said Hamed. The Mohammedan philosopher, for many by the light of nature and without the illumination of the faith, have come to understand the brevity and instability of our present existence, and the everlastingness of the eternal life to come. In this place, however, our author alludes only to the swiftness with which Sancho's government ended, was consumed and undone, and vanished into shadow and smoke. On the 7th night of his governorship, he was lying in bed, sated not with bread nor wine, but with judging, giving opinions, and making laws and decrees, when just as, despite his hunger, sleep was beginning to close his eyes, he heard a great noise of bells and shouting, which sounded as if the whole isle were foundering. He sat up in bed and listened, trying to make out the cause of this mighty uproar, but far from his discovering it, his confusion and terror were only augmented by the sound of countless trumpets and drums, which came on top of the din and voices and bells. So getting up, he put on his slippers because of the dampness of the floor, and without a dressing gown or anything of that sort, went to the door of his room, just in time to see more than 20 persons with lighted torches in their hands and swords unsheathed, some crying at the tops of their voices, "Arm, arm, Lord Governor, arm! For countless enemies have invaded this isle, and we are lost if your skill and valor do not succor us." Raising this tremendous noise, they rushed tumultuously to the place where Sancho was standing, stupefied and fascinated at what he heard and saw. And when they reached him, one of them cried, "Arm yourself at once, your lordship, if you do not want to be lost and all the isle with you." What have I to do with arming? Replied Sancho. What do I know of arms or succor? It would be better to leave these matters to my master Don Quixote. He will dispatch them and put them right in a flash. For sinner that I am before God, I don't understand anything about these hurly-burlies. "Oh, Lord Governor," cried another, "what weakness is this? Arm yourself, sir, for here we bring you arms of offense and defense. Come out to the market square and be our leader and captain, for that is your duty as our governor." "All right, let me be armed," answered Sancho. Instantly they brought him 2 large and ancient shields with which they had come provided, and sent them over his shirt without leaving him time to put on any other clothing, one shield in front and the other behind. They pushed his arm through some holes that had made in them, and bound him very tightly with cords, so that he found himself walled in and boarded up, upright as a spindle, and unable to bend his knees or stir a step. Then they put a spear in his hand, and he had to lean onto it to keep on his feet. When they had got him trussed up, they told him to march and lead him, and put courage into them all, for with him as their pole star, their lantern and light, all would be well. How can I march, poor wretch that I am, answered Sancho. I can't bring my knee joints into play, for these boards which are clamped to my flesh get in my way. What you must do is to take me up in your arms and lay me, crosswise or standing, at some postern, and I will guard it either with this spear or with my body. Go on, Lord Governor, cried another. It's fear, not the boards, that prevents your walking. Hasten and stir yourself, for it's late. Our enemies are increasing. Their cries grow louder, and danger presses. Thus urged and abused, the poor governor attempted to move, but came down on the ground with such a bump that he thought he must be broken to bits. He lay like a tortoise enveloped in its shell, or like a side of bacon clapped between two boards for salting, or like a boat upside down on the beach. For though they saw him fall, those playful rogues had no compassion on him. Instead, they put out their torches and began to repeat their urgent call to arms, trampling over poor Sancho and dealing him repeated bangs on his shield. Indeed, if he had not made himself small and shrunk his head in between them, things would have gone very badly with the poor governor, who, being thus contracted in that narrow space, sweated copiously and petitioned God with all his heart to deliver him from this danger. Some stumbled and others fell over him. And there was one who stood up on top of him for a good while, and from there, as from a watchtower, directed the army, shouting loudly, Here, you on our side, here, the enemy is pressing harder over here. Guard that postern, keep that gate shut, down with those scaling ladders, bring up the grenades, the pitch and the resin, and the kettles of boiling oil, barricade the streets with mattresses. In fact, in a fine frenzy, he named every appurtenance, implement, and weapon of war used for the defense of the city, and the battered Sancho, who heard and suffered it all, said to himself, Oh, if only the Lord would have been pleased to make an end of my losing this isle, and I might find myself dead, or out of this great affliction. Heaven heard his petition, and when he least expected it, he heard voices crying, Victory, victory, the enemy are beginning to fly. Here, Lord Governor, arise, enjoy your conquest, and divide the spoils taken from the enemy by the valor of your invincible arm. Lift me up, moaned the sorrowful Sancho in a woe-begone voice. So they helped him up, and once on his feet, he said, I would have you nailed to my forehead the enemy I conquered. I will divide no spoils of enemies, but I beg some friend, if I have one, to give me a drink of wine, for I am dry, and to wipe off my sweat, for I am turning to water. They wiped him down and brought him his wine, and untied the shields, and when seated on his bed, he fainted away. Such had been his fatigue, agony, and terror. Jokers were now sorry that they had carried things so far, but were consoled on seeing him recover. He asked them the time, and they replied that it was now daybreak. He said no more, but began to put on his clothes, in deep silence, without another word, while everyone gazed at him, waiting to see what this sudden dressing portended. At length, having slowly put on his clothes, for he was bruised and could not move very fast, he went towards the stable, followed by everyone present. And when he came to Dapple, he embraced him, giving him the kiss of peace on his forehead, and said to him with moist eyes, Come here, dear companion and friend of mine, my fellow partner in my trials and sorrows. When I went along with you and had no other thought but the mending of your harness and the feeding of your little carcass, happy were my hours, my days, and my years. But since I left you and climbed the tower of ambition and pride, 1,000 miseries had pierced my soul, 1,000 troubles and 4,000 tribulations.
Okay, we'll finish after break.
We have another